Hi, I'm Fangirl, and today I'm here to start Chapter 3 of Scum Villain's Self-Saving System. Last time we left off at a great place. Shinching Cho had just been poisoned, protecting Lo Bing-he, and he just passed out after patting Lo Bing-he on the head and after Liu Qingge had come to his aid, after Xua Haling almost did a palm strike contest against Shinching Cho on his provocation. Whatever it is. So yeah, we left for quite a exciting part. So just a heads up, today I've had quite a stressful day. I wanted to actually do some other recordings, some shows, but I don't have the energy to do them. I just finished watching Romania Black's last reading session of the main story of Heaven Official's Blessing, and that was fab, and I actually thought I really fancy continuing reading. So here I am. As usual, if you'd like to leave a comment about this chapter, then please do so below. If you want to leave a comment about a future chapter that you'd like me to read in my discussion after I've read the chapter, then please start the comment with for after completing this chapter or this page or whatever. And then I can read it in that video. I'd also appreciate it if you're going to include spoilers in your comment, whether it's about a future chapter or about the Donghua or something, then to please include that at the start of your comments so that people know to avoid it if they haven't either watched the Donghua or read that far ahead in the books. Otherwise, I think that's it. I don't think I'm going to delay anymore, and I think we'll just start. So, chapter 3 is called Favour Points. After sleeping for an unknown length of time, Shinching Cho finally awoke, more dead than alive. Opening his eyes to the sight of a familiar white, gauzy curtains above his head, he knew that he was on Qingjing Peak in his quiet, peaceful residence. He took a deep breath, wanting to stretch, when he suddenly realised that the door had opened and someone entered. Ming Fan held the tray in both hands. Seeing Shinching Cho awake, he dropped the tray on the table and started to bawl. "Shishun, you're finally awake!" Another person was still standing outside. Lo Bing-he lingered by the entrance like he wanted to come in, yet he hesitated. Ming Fan sobbed for a while, soaking a large patch of the bedsheet before turning over his shoulder. "Why are you still standing here? Don't you know that seeing you annoys Shishun?" He rebuked Lo Bing-he. Then he said to Shinching Cho, "I don't know what's wrong with that kid. He insisted on planting himself there like some kind of stick. He won't leave, no matter how much he's shooed away." Shinching Cho waved his hand. "No matter, let him. I'll go and get Liu Shushu, Zhang Men Shipo, and Mu Shishu," Ming Fan said. "They said to alert them as soon as you woke up." After saying this, he scrambled to his feet and rushed outside. It seemed to Shinching Cho that he'd slept for a very long time. Yue Chengyuan had already returned. As for Mu Shishu, that had to be Chang Tsao Peak's Mu Qingfang. Chang Xiao Peak specialised in medication and was proficient in the healing arts, so his presence made absolute sense. Lo Bing-he let Ming Fan pass, but even after Ming Fan had gone a distance, he wouldn't leave his spot. He only stared fixedly into the room, his fist clenched tightly the entire time. Shinching Cho slowly sat up. "Do you have something to say? Then come in." Lo Bing-he complied and entered the room. With a sudden thump, he fell to his knees before the bed. Shinching Cho stared at him in alarm. "Wait a moment. System? What's going on? All I did was sleep for a bit. How did things open up like this? How long have I been asleep for? Is it like 10 years in the future or something?" From his kneel, Lo Bing-he raised his head, gazed fervent and full of guilt. "Shishun, please forgive this disciple's foolishness and ignorance up until now." Foolishness and ignorance? You could describe a lot of people with those words, but certainly not Lo Bing-he, right? Originally, this disciple was under the impression that Shishun didn't care about him at all. Only after the third match did I understand what painstaking effort Shishun had put in. No, your original master really didn't care about you," Shinching Cho thought desperately. "He earnestly wished you dead, really. Although, exactly what painstaking efforts of mine have you noticed? Say it out loud. I'm very curious to know." But Lo Bing-he did not continue speaking on this topic. He only said, entirely earnest, from this day forth, this disciple would devote himself to carrying out his duty and serving Shishun with all his heart, obeying only Shishun's esteemed commands. Shinching Cho studied him with a complicated expression. All that past mistreatment and abuse, completely forgotten because he'd saved Lo Bing-he once. Weren't these favour points a little too easy to farm? To no surprise, at that time he was unable to understand the course of Lo Bing-he's thoughts, with their hundreds and thousands of twists and turns. Shinching Cho was silent for a moment. "As long as you understand. First, why don't you get up?" He still didn't understand this in the slightest. Fangirl, what exactly did you realise? He watched Lo Binghe slowly stand, yet the boy remained unwilling to leave. Instead, he seemed bashful, as if there was something he wanted to say. Is there something else? Shen Qingque asked. Shizhuan has slept for many days and only just woke up, said Lo Binghe. I was wondering, do you perhaps have an appetite? In truth, strictly speaking, Shen Qingque had long held himself in a state of inertia. Even if he didn't eat, he would be fine. But he was unable to resist his nature, which craved good food. As soon as he heard there were things to eat, his eyes shone with desire. Quite a bit, very much so. Lo Binghe dashed off to the kitchen. For the past few days, every couple of hours, he'd remade a serving of congee, and now it could finally be put to use. After bringing the congee to the table, still steaming hot, Lo Binghe helped Shen Qingque sit on the bed, so solicitous that it made the hair on the back of one's nape stand up. He came just short of spoon-feeding Shen Qingque, and a streak of goosebumps ran down Shen Qingque's forearms. He ate a few mouthfuls using the ladle himself, all the while Lo Binghe remained standing by his bedside, silently watching him. I love this scene in the donghua, the way that he is genuinely just gazing at him as he eats his congee. Love that. Shen Qingque thought for a moment when he was hit by a sudden realization. It's quite good, he said, reservedly offering a few words of praise. It wasn't just quite good. Even Qingjing's peak's name, clear and tranquil, told you that this branch tended towards the fresh and light, and the style of their cooks followed the same principle. After eating their food for so long, Shen Qingque's taste bud had become as dull as dishwater. Even though the bowl in his hand was full of mere congee, perhaps it was an issue of ingredients and technique, but compared to the watery, meagre congee he'd had recently, it was on an entirely different level. Snow-white congee rice, finely chopped scallions, delicious minced pork, and shredded ginger in just the right amount, and all at the perfect temperature. It had been too long. Shen Qingque's body wanted nothing but to weep. At this praise, Lo Binghe's eyes shone. If Shizhen likes it, may I give it to him every day with variations? Shen Qingque choked on the spot. Lo Binghe rushed to pat his back. Shen Qingque waved him off, expressing that he was fine. He was only a little shocked. Lo Binghe's excellent cooking skills were his foremost lady-killing technique. Shen Qingque had never thought that he would have the rare honour to eat as only a few key harem members in the original work got to, cuisine à la Lo Binghe. Even more shocking was that line, this one, I'll give it to you every day, with variations. Wasn't that what Lo Binghe had used to coax several spoiled young ladies into willingly and ecstatically entering his harem? Eating whatever you want is fine, but saying whatever you want is not. As Shen Qingque's expression had grown strange, Lo Binghe was slightly uneasy. Shizhuan dislikes it? He asked. You made me free food. Whoever disliked that would be an idiot. Shen Qingque said amiably, This master likes it very much. From today onward, I'll leave this to you. Finally, he didn't need to resign himself to eating that insubstantial watery fare. As the oh-so-mighty Qingjing Peak Lord, why didn't he have the privilege of a private kitchen? Having received approval, Lo Binghe once again blossomed like a spring flower. Shen Qingque watched him bloom, and without knowing why, his hand suddenly itched, wanting to pat the head again. Was it possible that Binghe's head had a special magnetic field? That would explain why he couldn't control himself. After sending a happily beaming Lo Binghe away, returning his goodwill by using him as hard labour, Shen Qingque called on the system. Is the scenario at the Endless Abyss unavoidable? He asked. If Lo Binghe fails to complete the Endless Abyss scenario, 10,000 satisfaction points will be deducted, said the system. Upon hearing that number, Shen Qingque once again, out of habit, spat up a fountain of blood. Afterward, he wiped his mouth. Whatever, he spat out so much blood that he was used to it at this point. This was eminently logical. If Lo Binghe wasn't shoved into the Endless Abyss, then he wouldn't be able to activate his golden finger. If the protagonist couldn't become overpowered, then where was the satisfaction? Therefore, the Endless Abyss scenario was unavoidable. And as this novel's number one loser, number one scum villain, the execution of this glorious task naturally, absolutely, inescapably fell to Shen Qingque. Yet, unwilling to resign himself to this fate, Shen Qingque asked again and ended up sighing, still unable to give up completely. Lo Binghe, who was currently like a little son, was destined to fall and become that brooding, cold-blooded demon youth. Even a transmigrator like Shen Qingque, who by all rights ought to have access to cheap powers, was unable to change this inevitability. He had been designated to be the man who threw the protagonist into the Endless Abyss, thereby catalysing his overpowered legendary journey. This job's opportunities for growth were really terrible. If Shen Qingque failed to do this, he would lose 10,000 satisfaction points. He couldn't become more thoroughly dead than that. But if he did do this, Once Liu Binghe activated his golden finger, he definitely wouldn't let him off. The work was difficult, the pay was meagre, the benefits were non-existent. What the hell was up with this? Liu Binghe hadn't left for long when several of Shen Qingqiu's sex siblings came to visit. Shen Qingqiu lay on the bed, reading a novel hidden inside a copy of Dao De Jing, which has a footnote. More commonly known as the Dao De Jing, a famous classical text on the philosophy and religion of Taoism by Laozi. When Yue Qingyuan entered, he shut the books without missing a beat so that the novel was tucked inside, with the Jiaoding's cover proudly exposed. I love that. Just very much the... I don't even know what kind of trope to call it, but, you know, like the whole thing of, like, basically hiding a magazine within, like, a very good novel or a very good piece of literature that would, like, you'd be praised for reading. Or that you should be reading, one or the other. He tried to get off the bed, but Yue Qingyuan hurriedly stopped him. Don't move so carelessly, he cautioned. You shouldn't leave the bed yet. Just keep lying down. Yue Qingyuan turned behind him to Mu Qingfang. Mushidi, come have another look. While Shen Qingqiu was unconscious, Mu Qingfang had already diagnosed him and provided treatment. This visit was likely further prognosis. Shen Qingqiu held out his wrist. I'm troubling Mushidi, he said politely. Mu Qingfang startled briefly, but I love that. Just every time that he acts like really polite, everyone's just like, okay. Mu Qingfang startled briefly, but he nodded, sitting by the bed and putting his fingers on Shen Qingqiu's pulse. With his medical expertise as the peak lord of Chang Sao Peak, no matter how complicated the case, he only needed an instant to make a diagnosis and provide a prescription. But he conscientiously remained there for a long while before finally removing his fingers, his expression solemn. How is he? Yue Qingyuan asked. As the patient in question, Shen Qingqiu showed no restraint. So can this poison be cured or not? Liu Qingge shook out his sleeves, sitting down next to the table with a humph. It's called without a cure. What do you think? Shen Qingqiu sighed. Then Mushidi might as well tell me. How many years do I have left? How many months? Or how many days? Mu Qingfang shook his head. Even though it's without a cure, its effects can be suppressed. His voice was even, neither quiet nor loud, but Shen Qingqiu felt like he'd hit the jackpot. Even though this poison was called without a cure, in truth there was a remedy. In the original work, at the Immortal Alliance Conference, with its twist after twist, a lovable, graceful and subdued little shimmer from another sect was hit by this rare poison. However, importantly, she was the protagonist's woman. Was there ever a stallion novel where the male lead let his own woman be poisoned to death? If there was, then he'd be a subpar wish-fulfillment protagonist. And that would be a shitty failure of a stallion novel. The cure was incredibly simple. Let us review the developments in the original work. Due to the irresistible power of the plot, in order to save the male lead, whom she'd known for less than 2 hours, that graceful little shimmer had let herself be hit by a demon's underhanded trick, and the poison contaminated her body. Liu Binghe felt an absolute obligation to save her, and therefore he took on the burden of looking for a cure for the graceful little shimmer. So it happened that, deep within the mountains where the Immortal Alliance Conference was being held, there grew a mythical 1,000-year-old flower. Sorry, Shen Qingqiu had already forgotten exactly what the name was, whatever flower or whatever leaf, because the number of mythical flowers in Proud Immortal Doomway was numbers at least in the hundreds, and every single one was at least thousands of years old, and when you added on all the mythical grasses and mythical trees, who the hell could remember all those names? Airplane shooting towards the sky. Do you think mythical flowers are like Chinese cabbages on sale? Leave mythical flowers at least a little the dignity that comes with being rare and precious. Liu Binghe was sure this legendary flower would cure the poison within the graceful shimmer's body. He put a tremendous amount of effort into picking it for her. Doing that took 3 days, 30 chapters. Wow. 30 chapters on his journey to get this flower for the shimmer. For those 3 days, they journeyed to pick the flower while fighting monsters, and through exchanging flirtatious glances, they developed a deep sense of camaraderie. By the time Liu Binghe finally managed to pick the flower, the graceful shimmer's condition had worsened, her entire body frail and devoid of strength. The two of them were overjoyed, and they hurried to get the graceful shimmer to eat the flower raw. However, it was ineffective. The poison wasn't cured. Their hearts sank. The girl thought, since I'm about to die, I must leave behind some memories to ensure that my life won't have been in vain. I don't have many days left, after all, so I won't suppress my feelings anymore. Then, using her weak and fragile body, she pushed Liu Binghe down. Liu Binghe put up a brief show of resistance before telling himself, she did it all for my sake. I don't have the heart to reject her final wish. He yielded, still half reluctant, and went along with it. Then, in the end, how was the poison cured? After the down and dirty scene, the girl's poison was naturally cured. Well. Was it ridiculous? Cliche? Impossible? But it was satisfying, right? Ridiculously satisfying. So ridiculously satisfying. Ha ha ha. Lobingho was of both human and demon blood, right? And the demon half of his bloodline came from their number one saintly ruler, from the heavenly demons of old. A wee little demonic poison wasn't even strong enough to get stuck between Lobingho's teeth, and he instantly absorbed and digested it during their, Instantly, he even absorbed the nutrients of the mythical flower the girl had just eaten, and so his martial ability once again made great progress. Shit. The so-called protagonist's privilege was that even if he stepped in dog shit, there would probably be a hidden scroll or elixir within it. As Shen Qingqiu thought back on his segment of Proud and Mortal Demon Way, his facial expression kept changing erratically. He failed to notice even when the others addressed him. Yue Qingyuan had to repeatedly call his name many times before he finally returned to himself. What? Mu Qingfang passed him a piece of paper. Every month, take these 4 medications, then circulate your spiritual energy with someone who has high quantities of it. This will assist you in maintaining regular spiritual circulation. If you do these things, you shouldn't have any problems. He paused for a moment. The only thing is, I'm afraid that from today onward, Shen Xinxiong, occasionally your spiritual qi will at times suddenly stagnate, or you may suffer other abnormalities in your circulation. The other 3 people in the room all paid close attention to his expression. One must remember that to cultivators, the stagnation of spiritual circulation was a profoundly terrifying problem, especially if it cropped up during a duel between your expert practitioners, where a single slip-up can mean your life. Little did they know, Shen Qingqiu was immensely satisfied with this result. For somebody in a Scum villain role to be poisoned with something without a cure and still be able to live, it was giving him too much confidence. He knew that going at it with the protagonist could have cured the poison, but could he do that? Could he? Yue Qingyuan sighed. Had I known any of this would have come to pass, I would not have left the mountain. Shen Qingqiu thought his tone was too solemn. The Immortal Alliance Conference has always been a massive event that the various sex leaders must work together to organise, he hurried to say. How could you not have gone, Shizhong? This happened due to the demon's underhanded deceit and my own carelessness. You must not hold yourself responsible. If he didn't say this clearly here, given Yu Chunyang's personality, he might never leave the mountain ever again. He'd stay and defend Sangchong Mountain Sect to his last. That was all entirely possible. To his surprise, Mu Qingfang also guiltily declared, No, the fault is all mine. If I hadn't failed to realise there's a demonic invasion, and if my skill weren't too poor to fully cure Shen Xinxiong, then it wouldn't have come to this either. No, it has nothing to do with you two, Shen Qingqiu insisted. Come to think of it, I was a bit indelicate and smashed a giant hole in the ground before Chongding Hall with that hammer. The 3 of them devolved into a jumbled apologising and blame-taking that seemed both chaotic and comical. It left Shen Qingqiu both touched and embarrassed, his entire body breaking out into goosebumps and his scalp growing numb. Liu Chungu stared out the window, face expressionless. He waited until they had exhausted themselves, then finally took a sip of tea and said, This matter must remain secret to all but the 12 Peak Lords. If outsiders became aware that the Peak Lord of Sangchong Mountain Sect's 2nd peak had suddenly a deadly weakness, things would be unfun, to say the least. All 3 of the others naturally understood this. Do you think that the burden of Peak Lord would be too heavy, Qingqiu? Asked Yue Qingyuan. The original Shen Qingqiu would most likely have suspected that Yue Qingyuan was trying to undermine his authority or something of that sort. However, the current Shen Qingqiu knew that Yue Qingyuan was genuinely worried about him, overworking himself and damaging his health, and he rushed to respond. Zhangmen Shizhong, really don't worry about me anymore. I haven't been crippled to that extent. He smiled. For now my hands, feet and mouth still work, and I still have my cultivation. I am entirely satisfied. They then discussed a variety of details of the demon invasion before Yue Qingyuan and Ming Qingfeng took their leave. Shen Qingqiu watched them go, thinking it all terribly funny, yet he also felt an unutterable warmth and peace. Even though his fellow disciples' personalities were all different, with some easy to get along with, some difficult, they all breathed as one. Though split into 12 peaks, whenever something went wrong, they were a dependable family. Excepting the original Shen Qingqiu. Liu Qinggu put down his tea, which had long gone ice cold. If it weren't for your body's lack of ghostly qi, I would definitely suspect you'd been possessed. And the one who remained just happened to be one of the difficult ones. On a certain level, your guess is very correct. Liu Qinggu continued. You saved me in the Lingxi caves. That in itself was inconceivable. During the demon attack, you also rescued some nameless disciple and almost lost your life. You were poisoned to the point of damaging your spiritual energy levels, and you should be furious, yet you peacefully accepted it. Someone else doing so wouldn't be strange, but you doing so upturns everything. Shen Qingqiu absolutely didn't want to discuss the issues of his own OOC personality with Liu Qinggu. He called Ming Fan to refresh the tea, then leaned back and smiled. Nameless? That's only for now. That disciple of yours, his base is indeed excellent, Luo Qingge said. However, a fair number with his level of aptitude are invited into the large sects every year, and in the end, the number who can become truly outstanding is less than 1 in 10,000. Shen Qingque suddenly sensed danger. What if Luo Qingge became a stumbling block on Luo Binghe's journey to becoming an overpowered and, during a confrontation between the two of them, was KO'd in a snap? For everyone's sake, he needed to warn Luo Qingge. Believe me, he said patiently, earnestly, this disciple of mine will definitely be a success. I hope when Liu Shidu has the chance, you can give him a little support and guidance as often as possible. Ming Fan was half dead from depression. He had only come to refresh the tea, yet had to be forced to hear Shen Qingque, his ally in torturing a shared enemy, heap praise after praise upon Luo Binghe. The level of frustration he felt was akin to that of the confidant who, for years, always cursed a little bastard with you, suddenly went and coupled up with the same little bastard you tormented together. Repulsed, he immediately decided to go be repulsive to others. A stormy Ming Fan found Luo Binghe in the kitchen, pondering over what food to make Shen Qingque the next morning. Ming Fan showered him with verbal abuse before issuing a series of commands. Go, chop some wood. Chop 80 bundles. For the entire woodshed. Fetch water. The jars in our room are all empty. Are you blind? Can't you see? But, Shizhong, if the woodshed is full, where will I sleep? Luo Binghe asked, perplexed. Ming Fan stomped his foot, spittle flying everywhere. Isn't it flat in here? Isn't that floor enough? I just filled the water jars in your room today. That water isn't fresh anymore. Redo it. Refill them all. In the past, some grievance and bitterness might have sprouted in Luo Binghe's heart, but today his attitude was completely different. In his eyes, these were all training opportunities. He had already had such a good teacher, one who thought of everything for him, who was even willing to sacrifice his life for him, right? What training could he not overcome? What suffering could he not withstand? Luo Binghe didn't say another word. He turned on his heel to get ready to work. Ming Fan could derive not even a little satisfaction from his reaction, and instead felt even more frustrated. He stormed away while cursing. I really can't understand what about that brat caught Shizhen's eye, for Shizhen to suddenly see him in a new light. A success. Outstanding. Even if that brat bewitched Shizhen with some poison, Liu Shishu still won't guide or support him. Unthinkable. Bah! Though Ming Fan cursed unceasingly as he went, his voice wasn't loud. But how could Luo Binghe, with his blindingly fast progress and naturally sharp 5 senses, not hear? Ming Fan's mutterings were largely harsh words and phrases, but in the midst he touched on the key words, and in an instant Luo Binghe took those bits and pieces to guess most of the whole picture. So Shizhen had actually spoken about him like that in front of Liu Shishu. The feeling of having someone speak about you so highly somewhere you couldn't see, that feeling was truly indescribably wonderful. Warmth suddenly surged in Luo Binghe's heart. The more it surged, the stronger it became, gradually flowing through his entire body. Luo Binghe felt like a steady strength had taken root somewhere in the depths of his heart and was starting to bud. Even his hand, carrying the heavy wooden bucket, seemed to become stronger. At this time, not only did Luo Binghe not feel like other people were making things difficult for him, his expression became joyful and satisfied. If Shen Qingque were there, he would definitely have suspected that, within the depths of his heart, Luo Binghe was actually an extreme masochist. However, Shen Qingque was astoundingly oblivious to the fact that, thanks to the divine wingman abilities of his useless teammate Min Fang, Luo Binghe's favour had again risen to a new high. For the time being, Shen Qingque was lying down in elation. That day, the always lofty Qingqing Peak's doorstep almost broke from all the feet rushing across it. The various peak lords all brought their disciples to visit, along with gifts of condolence. After all, during Shah Haling's armed provocation, the rainbow bridges had been severed, and Chongding Peak had been sealed by a barrier. They had been unable to intervene, and so the burden of the fight had fallen on Shen Qingque, who had been the sole representative of the older generation. Anyhow, Sangchong Mountain hadn't lost too much face. But no matter whether their past relationship had been good or bad, the Peak Lords absolutely had to come and express proper sentiments. Shen Qingque calmly received their greetings and used the chance to learn the faces of several Peak Lords he hadn't yet met, while also taking the opportunity to make some small talk and strengthen his relationships. That night he was on cloud 9 as he thought, finally I can have a peaceful night's sleep. However, 4 hours later, peaceful night's sleep my ass. Shen Qingque stood in the middle of a stretch of chaotic Shen Qingque stood in the middle of a stretch of chaotic nothingness and stared out at the endless horizon. He'd definitely just been drunk on satisfied smiles, comfortably sinking into sleep in his bed. Could someone explain why he'd been dragged into this space? Shen Qingque really wished he had a gong, one he could ring to summon the system, so he wouldn't need to always yell at the top of his lungs within his mind, "System, are you online?" The system provides you with 24-hour service. Where is this? What's the situation? This is a world within a dream realm. Of course I know this is a dream realm. There. Of course I know this is a dream realm, said Shen Qingque. Tell me, how could such an abstract scenery exist in reality? I'm asking why I'm here. Come on, he thought, please don't let it be what I'm thinking. But this world really wouldn't give him a break. Just as he thought, don't, in the next second he saw a figure that was unbearably familiar. Lobing stood before him, bewildered, in the middle of a never-ending wasteland. He also seemed entirely lost as to why he'd appeared here. After a moment of bewilderment, Shen Qingqiu's form came into his view. Lobing startled, then dashed over happily, like a chick who'd seen its mother hen. What kind of shitty analogy was that? Shizhuan! Lobing had already been trapped in this world for a long time. He was instantly excited by the sight of Shen Qingqiu and called him repeatedly again and again. As soon as Shen Qingqiu laid eyes on him, he recognised this place and what scenario he'd been thrust into. Instantly, all of Shen Qingqiu's hopes turned to dust, and even as a shower of tears rained down on his heart, he patted Lobing shoulder. I heard you. No need to call me so many times. Yes, Shizhuan, Lobing said hurriedly. Why are you here too? Do you know where we are? Being lazy, Shen Qingqiu directly echoed the system's lines. This is a world within a dream realm. Then why am I here? Lobing asked again. Anyone else being here is the strange thing, while your presence is quite natural, said Shen Qingqiu. This is your dream realm. Mine? Lobing startled and backed up a step, looking at the endless desolate land and sky. My dream realm actually looks like this? The dream realm, one's view of the world, reflected one's heart. Lobing was so young, yet his mindscape wasn't filled with the red of flowers and the green of willows, but this bleak scenery. One couldn't help feeling sorrow. Shen Qingqiu pretended to ponder for a while. This is not an ordinary dream realm. I'm afraid that while you were unaware, someone tampered with it. The waves of spiritual energy within this realm are strong and unstable, though this master was inadvertently pulled in by you. This disciple is useless and involves Shizhuan once again. Lobing's face was ashamed, but he considered this carefully. Exactly who would tamper with my dream realm? Shen Qingqiu was ready with an answer, fully enjoying the experience of divulging spoilers. No need to think too hard. The borders of this dream realm churn with demonic chi, and any entity who would use such crude techniques undoubtedly must be a demon. Lobing was unsurprised, and these words only deepened his hatred towards that race. The ways of demons are truly poisonous. Shen Qingqiu wondered what sort of expression Lobing would make in the future, thinking back on these words, once he learnt of his own demonic heritage. Not necessarily poisonous, said Shen Qingqiu with a smile. Perhaps their intentions are the exact opposite. Someone not in the know couldn't hope to comprehend the words spoken from his omniscient perspective. Lobing didn't understand. What does his master mean? But Shen Qingqiu's smile seemed profound, and the tail of his sentence was inflected slightly upward in a somewhat teasing tone. It was a sort of hint that made people's imaginations run wild. Lobing stopped there, not daring to think about it further. In truth, Shen Qingqiu didn't intend to tease. He thought himself very straightforward. The one who tampered with Lobing's dream realm was Shuao Ling. Though she did have some harmful intentions, her underlying motive was obvious. Naturally, she was driven by a young girl's secret yearning for love. Otherwise, she would have directed her aggressions towards others, not specifically Lobing. Demons were compelled to viciously bully the person they liked. Only if the object of their affections failed to die would the demon accept them. If their target died, that meant they were useless and not worth nursing any lingering affections for. This dream realm is rather complicated, said Shen Qingqiu. An ordinary nightmare technique couldn't trap me. I can dispel those with a mere thought, but this dream realm was truly meticulously constructed. I'm afraid that until the core of the illusion is destroyed, no one will be able to leave. Even Shizhuan will be trapped in this realm forever? Lobing asked, anxious. Shen Qingqiu glanced at him. You will be too. Lobing's mind jolted, his face going from red to white. It's all this disciple's fault. The situation is what it is, so there's no use decrying it, said Shen Qingqiu. We should devise a solution as soon as possible, dispel the barrier and take our leave. Lobing silently nodded and followed behind Shen Qingqiu as they headed towards the dream realm's border. Shen Qingqiu's face was smooth and unchanging, but his mind was a stormy sea. He was having an intense back and forth with the system. System alert. You are now entering an important subplot scenario, the dream doing Mengmo's barrier. During the subplot, please make sure to assist Lobing in defeating Mengmo's illusion. Otherwise, 1,000 satisfaction points will be deducted. There it was again. Always deducting satisfaction points, and every time it was a heart attack-inducing number. After assiduously working for so long, Shen Qingqiu had only managed to scrounge a couple of satisfaction points here and there, while the system could remove 1,000 points in a single deduction. Was this really fair? As a person, no, as a system, you shouldn't be so inflexible. That wasn't the main point, though. The main point was that the thing was the wrong script. Let us summarise the scenario's original setup. Lobing was pushed into Mengmo's sphere of influence, but before danger struck, he he instinctually sought protection and pulled the person he trusted most into the barrier with him. Shenxing Cho urgently called to the system. Master, good master, esteemed master, there's been a bug, right? In this section, Lo Binghe should be cozying up with a maiden, and the maiden is responsible for unravelling his complexes and using love to help him defeat his inner demons. How come I've been thrust into this role? Where is the promised deep and emotional heart-to-heart where she's accepted into his harem? Where is the promised little Shimei who refuses to leave him either in life or in death? Our self-inspection failed to find a bug. The system is running normally. No bug. That meant in this scenario, Shenxing Cho either had to carry out that role or die. This was the butterfly effect. Originally, the one who was pulled into Lo Binghe's nightmare was Ning Ying Ying. As Lo Binghe's closest, most trusted confidant on Qingjing Peak in the early story, this gate-crashing, intimacy-building task was clearly her job. What was happening now? How had the hat of closest, most trusted confidant nonsensically landed on Shenxing Cho's head? I would like to express that I'm overwhelmed by this honour, but I don't at all want to accept the special distinction. Shishun, what's wrong? Lo Binghe asked in concern, seeing his unreadable expression. Shenxing Cho promptly pulled himself together. Nothing's wrong, he said calmly. This now sort of thinking that demons who manipulate dream realms often target the weaknesses of the human heart. You must be vigilant and on your guard. Lo Binghe nodded, his expression firm. This disciple definitely won't allow Shifu to be dragged in again. This was miserable. Not only had Shenxing Cho been thrust into a dangerous situation, on top of that he had to assume the task of playing out the maiden's role. Shenxing Cho absolutely didn't want to charge through a mountain of knives or a sea of fire with the male lead to confront the terrifying Master Meng Mo, while also blocking lives for him and even providing free psychological therapy. That said, complaining was useless. In the past, when he'd been faced with this kind of situation, his habit had been to cuss out airplanes shooting towards the sky, but honestly, Great Master Airplane was also innocent. He was a proper upright stallion novel author, and he definitely wouldn't have wanted something like this to happen in his work. A healthy maiden being replaced by a scum villain. How disheartening. Ordinary readers would throw the book to the floor. An unordinary reader. The two of them kept walking, the clouds above and scenery around them like a kaleidoscope, sometimes lengthening and twisting, and at other times shattering into thousands of fragments, always erratic. The picture formed by the world they walked through was exceedingly eerie, like the people had been illustrated by Da Vinci, while the backgrounds had been illustrated by Picasso. The style clash was extraordinarily intense. I kind of wish they tried doing a little bit of abstract. I know it's quite hard because it's 3D assets and etc. And so to be able to reuse them, you wouldn't want to kind of mess around with them too much. But it'd been quite fun to see like a more artsy kind of approach, or at least, yeah, like you said, like some sort of clash in styles. Because that would have been cool. Suddenly, from within the dense layers of cloud emerged the buildings of a city. They stopped in their steps. Lo Binghe looked at Shenxing Cho, waiting for a signal. Counter soldiers with arms and floods with earthen dams, Shenxing Cho muttered to himself. We will deal with whatever situations arise as appropriate. Forward. As they walked to the city gate, Lo Binghe raised his head, his expression becoming slightly puzzled. Shenxing Cho knew very well what he was thinking, that this city looked very familiar. Of course it was familiar. This was the city Lo Binghe had wandered while homeless during his childhood. The city gates naturally had no guards defending them, and slowly opened by themselves. Shenxing Cho led him inside. This dream realm was frightening in its realism. When abstract, it was so abstract that it became blobs of colours. When photorealistic, it was so photorealistic as to be indistinguishable from reality. The city's streets, markets, residences, vendor stalls, every single one was intricate enough to make your hair stand on end. Lit brightly with lamps, with people coming and going. From a distance it looked bustling and lively, but once Shenxing Cho drew close, even though he had long prepared himself, his heart still almost escaped his ribcage. These people moving about were, 201, faceless. Every visage was a blurry mass, features unclear, and none of them made a sound. They didn't seem like living people at all, yet they still milled around, wandering back and forth. The entire city was deathly silent, its busyness entirely uncanny. Lo Binghe had never seen a scene like this. Shishun, he said aghast. What are these things? Shenxing Cho was panicking a little from terror. But he still took on the duty of being an expository encyclopedia. This is an illusionary city created via a nightmare. In the dream realm, one can create inanimate objects such as buildings and trees, but not living people. At most, they can be fashioned into At most they can be fashioned to this extent, speechless monsters that lack noses and faces. Even so, to be able to construct something on the scope of a city, and to make it nearly like unto reality, I'm afraid it can only be one person. Lobingho was incredibly cooperative, and he humbly sought instruction. One person? Meng Mo. Meng Mo, the dream demon, was the boss of this instance of a dream realm. Meng Mo's true identity was that of a famously brilliant and accomplished elder among demons. Several hundred years ago, a bout of divine punishment had destroyed his physical body, but his powerful spirit had endured, undamaged. From then on, he had become a parasite within others' dream realms, subsisting by absorbing their spiritual energy and vitality. At the same time, he was also one of the protagonist's teachers on his road to becoming a demon. Thus we can give him a more direct and intimate nickname, the Portable Grandfather. Meng Mo was the one who, after Lobingho broke through his barrier, formulaically took a liking to the protagonist, formulaically taught him everything about his lost arts, and formulaically from that point forth, occasionally helped the male lead think up plans for taking care of small fry. Lobingho still wanted to ask a few more questions, but then his eyes involuntarily swept through the crowd and froze for a split second. Despite knowing the answer, Shen Qingqiu asked, "What's wrong?" "Faces," Lobingho blurted out. "Shushan, just now I think I saw people with faces." Shen Qingqiu readily healed his words and kept it concise. "We follow." They closely tailed the few figures who were incongruous with the people and style of the surroundings, turning and twisting through the city, until they finally stopped before an alley. In total there were 5 people with faces. They appeared to be 5 youths, each one equipped with noses and features. The 4 taller figures surrounded one on the ground, and they cursed and yelled incessantly. Words like little mongrel and bastard poured from their mouths. They completely failed to notice the 2 people behind them. "It looks like they can't see us," said Lobingho. He looked at Shen Qingqiu as if to ask, "Didn't you say Meng Mo was incapable of creating people with complete features?" "Time for more angst." Shen Qingqiu heaved a sigh in his heart. Meng Mo indeed cannot create people using nightmares, but he didn't create these individuals. Lobingho, look more closely at their faces. Lobingho slowly turned his gaze towards them. Although his expression didn't change much, in a flash a drop of cold sweat dripped down his forehead. "These are not illusions created by Meng Mo," said Shen Qingqiu. "They are projections of real people from your memories. Meng Mo only awakened these reflections from the memories sleeping within your mind." But Lobingho could no longer hear him. He placed his hands on his temples, and it seemed as if his head was twitching. Shen Qingqiu knew that Lobingho's inner demons had already struck. Those 4 rowdy youths surrounded the child in the alley, who appeared to be only around 4 or 5 years old, as they punched and kicked him. That shabbily dressed child had covered his head with both arms and curled up on the ground, soundlessly taking the beating. It really made one worry that they'd beat the young one to death. "Huh, this little mongrel sure is blind, daring to enter our territory and snatch our food. Must be tired of living. Step on him, step on him. He's so pitiful, right? Hungry with nothing to eat. Beat him to death and you won't have anything to worry about." Lobingho's head hurt like it was splitting open. That small, frail figure on the ground was his young self from the past. Through the dishevelled hair and blood-stained face, 2 bright eyes like stars, like sharp swords lancing forwards, met his gaze. Lobingho was completely unable to look away. "Pull yourself together," Shen Qingqiu said slowly. "It's only an illusion." However, the terrifying thing about Meng Mo was that he specialized in summoning the human heart's deepest terror, rage, and misery in order to destroy a person's psychological defenses. To a Lobingho who had already activated his god mode cheats, the power of 10,000 Meng Mo's together would amount to little more than parlour tricks. But the Lobingho now, whose demonic blood had yet to awaken, was trapped in the dream realm and his dark memories. All he could see was his own powerlessness. Suddenly, the alley seemed distorted, transforming into another one. Not good, Shen Qingqiu thought. A second killing blow without time to prepare. They were in a broken-down little hut. The hut only had 1 bed, a crooked little table with a dimly lit oil lamp on top, and a small wooden bench. On the bed lay a haggard old woman. With great effort she tried to prop herself up, but from beginning to end she was unable to do so. A small figure rushed in from outside. A tender-faced Lobingho, only a little over 10 years old, supported the woman. Around his neck hung that jade pendant. "Mother, why are you getting up again?" he asked anxiously. "Didn't we say it's fine to rest?" The young woman coughed. "Lying down doesn't help with anything. Might as well get up and wash the clothes." "I already finished washing," said little Lobingho. "Mother, lie down and wait for me to finish simmering your medicine. You can work after you take it and get better." The woman's face was ashen, her sickness long beyond cure, and she had little time left to live. She smiled while patting Lobingho's head. "Lobingho is so sweet." Little Lobingho lifted his head, forcing himself to smile. "What does Mother want to eat?" "These days I have less and less appetite." The woman paused and hesitantly added, "The last time our house's young master threw out his white congee, I did wish for a bit of a taste. I wonder if the kitchens have any left." Little Lobingho vigorously nodded. "I'll go ask for Mother." "Just asking is enough," Lobingho warned him again and again. "If there's none left, then just make something lighter and soupy. As long as it fills the stomach, it's fine. Absolutely do not request anything. Absolutely do not request any from the chef." Lobingho promised profusely, then ran out like the wind, his feet clapping against the ground. After lying down for a while, the woman felt beneath her pillow for a needle and thread and started doing needlework. The lamplight in the hut became dimmer and dimmer. While Lobingho's mind was unclear, he reached out, trying to grasp something. Shen-Ching-Cho grabbed his hand. "Lobingho," he said forcefully, "look carefully. This isn't your mother, and you are no longer that helpless child who could only enjoy humiliation." One of the things that made this nightmare so lethal was that the more agitated and trapped the victim became, the more damage it would do their mind. Lobingho's present extreme instability was terribly harmful to his spirit. Another dangerous thing that you needed to remember was that you absolutely could not attack the people who appeared in your dream realm. Every single person was formed from the mind and consciousness of the dream realm's host. As soon as you attacked them, you'd also be attacking your own brain. Many people, not knowing this or unable to control their emotions, attacked the people in the dream realm who'd hurt them in the past and thereby sent themselves into a coma. If Lobingho fell into that state, Shen-Ching-Cho would of course also be trapped in the dream realm with him. The scenery around them shifted erratically. The nightmare was a collection of Lobingho's misfortunes and traumas from his past decade-plus years of life. The scene suddenly transformed into a little Lobingho pleading with the house chef to grant his adopted mother a bottle of congee before being ridiculed by the manor's young master. Then it became the time right after he'd joined Changing Peak, when he'd been subjected to exclusion and spite by his numerous mahjong, his frail form straining as he swung a rusty axe or carried pails of water up the long stairs as his steps slowed more and more. Then the moment when his treasured jade pendant was snatched away, never to be found. The distorted scenes piled up as they came one after another without pause. The present Lobingho could neither see nor hear anything beyond this maelstrom of images and memories. Within his head there was only an ongoing explosion of hatred, despair, suffering, hope, helplessness, and fury from those times, churning endlessly within his chest and mind. The only way to dispel this nightmare would be to undo the tangles in one's heart, thereby causing the nightmare to collapse on itself. But Lobingho's fists were tightly clenched. Cracking sounds came from his fingers. His breathing grew increasingly unsteady. His eyes turned an unnatural red, and a faintly discernible current of spiritual power coursed around him. It's as if his desire to attack was growing and near irresistible. Standing near him was supremely dangerous, thought Shen-Ching-Cho. "Don't attack them," Shen-Ching-Cho said harshly. "Even if you hit them, you'll be the one who's injured." Lobingho could no longer hear his words. He lifted his right palm, and a powerful spiritual blast blew forth from his palm, hurtling straight forward to destroy the people laughing freely within the illusion. Shen-Ching-Cho cried out within his heart. No matter how painful, his body still understood its duties. He rushed over, throwing himself before the illusions, blocking the spiritual blast head-on. It struck his lower abdomen. In that instant, Shen-Ching-Cho felt like he'd been stomped on by an elephant, and his vision grew dark. If this weren't the dream realm, he'd have vomited an endless fountain of blood, as expected of the protagonist. Shen-Ching-Cho's face was drenched with tears. Lobingho was obviously only a young disciple, so how could he release in such a powerful spiritual blast? It seemed that ever since he'd unlocked the OOC function, not only had he not accomplished any grand achievements, the only thing he'd done aside from blocking blows was block more blows, and also block some blows. He was doing just grand as a self-sacrificial meat shield, wasn't he? With this attack of Lobingho's, the illusion around them was broken, and the people and objects were shattered like glass into thousands of shards. The illusory landscape transformed into a remote forested wilderness. The sky was a dark blue, and the lone cold moon hung high and golden above their heads. Lobingho's mind instantly cleared. He first stared blankly, speechlessly at the half-kneeling Shen-Ching-Cho, who was unable to stand. Then he lowered his head to look at his own palm, where a shed of remaining spiritual power was still flowing through his fingertips. Vaguely remembering what he'd done, his face turned stark white. Lobingho threw himself to Shen-Ching-Cho's side to support him, both worried and regretful. "Shushun, why didn't you hit back?" With Shen-Ching-Cho's level of spiritual power, he would have been wholly capable of returning Lobingho's spiritual blast, forcing their powers to collide and directly pitting them against each other until the stronger one won. Not only could he have dissolved Lobingho's attack, he could have deflected it back at him. "Foolish child," Shen-Ching-Cho said simply, expressing his innermost feelings. Then he continued weakly, The point was to ensure you wouldn't be injured. If I deflected it back and injured you, what would be the purpose of that? That frail voice made Lo Bing-ho want to strike his own heart and kill himself. But now the one injured is Shizhen. It hadn't been long since they fought those 3 matches against the Demon Realm, and Shizhen had already, again, been injured for his sake, and this time by his own hand. Shin-Shin-Cho saw the self-blame and misery on that child's face about to overflow, and unable to stand it, he said consolingly, "Can your cultivation compare to mine? Even if this master took several more blows, it wouldn't matter." Lo Bing-ho would have preferred Shin-Shin-Cho to be as he had in the past and vent his anger by viciously beating and cursing him. Even if he were utterly ignored, scorned and ridiculed, it would have been easier in the heart. On the contrary, Shin-Shin-Cho's tone and words were unerringly gentle, and so Lo Bing-ho was struck dumb and speechless, completely at a loss for what to do. After a long moment, he said in a low voice, "It's all my fault." The early Lo Bing-ho indeed walked the path of a brainless moe white lotus. Shin-Shin-Cho figured he'd once again fallen into the self-flagellating pattern of an anxious people-pleaser. "It has nothing to do with you," Shin-Shin-Cho explained patiently. "The ways of demons are extremely unpredictable and impossible to guard against. However, if you don't want to run into similar trouble in the future, you must become stronger." These words were spoken purely out of his personal feelings. Becoming stronger was the only way to guarantee that you wouldn't become cannon fodder to be pushed around by the world. Lo Bing-ho's thoughts shifted, and without speaking, he suddenly raised his head, fixing his gaze steadily on Shin-Shin-Cho. Shin-Shin-Cho's heart thumped. Lo Bing-ho's eyes, dark like obsidian, flashed with a light more dazzling than the reflection of the moon and stars. That look in his eyes, that kind of protagonist look full of resolute conviction and blazing fighting spirit. Could it be I've already become the protagonist's guiding star in his life path going forward? Lo Bing-ho fell into a proper kneeling position by Shin-Shin-Cho's side. "I understand," he said in a strong, clear voice. "Wait, what did you understand this time? Can you not say only half your words every time? Tell me the rest." Shin-Shin-Cho didn't notice that, as Lo Bing-ho spoke the sentence, he didn't use "this disciple" to address himself. Lo Bing-ho tightly clenched his fist. This kind of thing, he said, enunciating each word. "I definitely won't let it happen a second time. Letting Shizhen protect his weak self, letting Shizhen be injured because of him, this kind of thing absolutely could not happen again." Shin-Shin-Cho let out an, "Oh, what's going on?" He suddenly had this, "the protagonist is protecting me, I feel so safe" kind of feeling. What exactly was going on? Safe your ass. This person will carve you into a human stick in the future. Wake up. Shin-Shin-Cho was filled with a plethora of complex emotions. Originally, this conviction to become stronger to protect my important person should have been inspired by the protagonist seeing the female lead's frail, lovely, and delicately panting form after she sustained an injury while helping him. Was the system laying all the emotional labour associated with the female female lead's role on Shin-Shin-Cho? To hand out the wrong script at this point. Also, if you're giving me extra parts, could you at least offer me a complimentary meal? Meals? Taking on a main character's long and tedious lines while being paid an extra's thin and meagre wages. This was labour exploitation. Out of selfishness, Shin-Shin-Cho managed to lift a hand and pat Lo Bing-ho on the head. Lo Bing-ho's originally stubborn gaze froze, as if a handful of clear spring water had doused his flickering anger. I love like that's out of selfishness. Like it's so for his own benefit that he's like, no, this is purely for me. This motion, me patting his head, is purely for me. Shin-Shin-Cho thought for a moment. Actually, you need not to worry too much. If you cannot become strong, I'll stay by your side and protect you. Instead of letting Lo Bing-ho become that pitch-black basket case of a young man who made destroying the world his personal mission, it'd be better if he could stay this delicate little white lotus forever. Shin-Shin-Cho absolutely wouldn't have minded keeping this iteration of Lo Bing-ho by his side and taking care of him for a lifetime. These were his simple thoughts, but to the person hearing his words, they didn't sound so simple. Lo Bing-ho was wholly dumbfounded. No one had ever made such a straightforward and impassioned promise to him. Even though the world was large, few people in it could say, "You need not become strong. I am here, and of course I won't let you be bullied." And they weren't empty words. If Shishwan said he could do it, he could. He had already proven time and again with his actions that he would rather sustain grievous injury than to let Lo Bing-ho suffer even a tiny bit of harm. Still, the sense of indulgence within these words was too much to bear. As that first surge of warmth slowly subsided, a burning heat crawled up Lo Bing-ho's face. Shen Qingqiu coughed for a while, miserably discovering coughing up blood within the dream realm was impossible, then pinched Lo Binghe's arm. "All right, first help me up." Lo Binghe realised that where his wrist had been pinched and neither hurt nor itched. Instead it tingled. Immediately he also realised his thoughts were overstepping and had scolded himself a little. Thinking such nonsense at a time like this, how disrespectful to Shishun. He hurriedly organised his thoughts and did as he was told. Suddenly a voice sounded out of nowhere. That hoarse, aged voice made an inquisitive noise and said, "You're quite something to actually break through this elder's barrier, boy." That voice echoed all around them. It was impossible to determine which direction it had come from. This level's boss had finally appeared. Lo Binghe was supporting Shen Qingqiu and didn't rise to his feet, his gaze wary. Meng Mo had appeared while Shen Qingqiu was injured, and things were not looking good. Lo Binghe resolved to himself that if Meng Mo tried to attack, even with his paltry strength, he would still give his all to impede him and earn Shen Qingqiu every possible chance of survival. The instant he made his decision, that voice spoke again. "Come over here and let this elder see what kind of a young hero is capable of such a thing." Lo Binghe looked at Shen Qingqiu. The latter's entire mind was filled with the thought of, I finished my friendship performance. I can finally leave work now. And he was extremely cheerful. He even felt like teasing a student. The senior is asking for the young hero, he said. Why don't you reply? Lo Binghe's face reddened. He turned and spoke in a clear voice. "You flatter me. The barrier was broken by my master's strength alone." The voice humped as if in disdain. Shen Qingqiu knew why he'd humped. Though he had blocked an attack for Lo Binghe, this was Lo Binghe's dream realm, and so Lo Binghe had needed to wrest back control of his consciousness before the nightmare could be broken. But Shen Qingqiu couldn't be bothered to explain. This voice spoke. "This elder wants you to come over, boy, but I don't want this ordinary cultivator from Sangchong Mountain to hear our conversation. I'll have him sleep first." As expected, the circumstances were exactly the same as when Ning Ying Ying had played the role in the original story. Everything aside from Lo Binghe would be waved off stage by Meng Mo. A headache instantly came over Shen Qingqiu, and he collapsed heavily. Alarmed, Lo Binghe gathered him in his arms. "Shishun," he called. "Shishun!" "No need to worry," said Meng Mo. This elder only sent him into a dream within a dream. He's just in a deeper sleep. "Get over here, you." This time it was possible to discern that the voice was coming from a pitch-black cave off to the west. Lo Binghe couldn't wake Shen Qingqiu. He carefully laid his master on the ground, then turned and spoke in the direction of the voice. "My master acknowledged you as a senior, so I must treat you with the same courtesy. I hope you also won't cause Shishun trouble." Meng Mo chuckled. "I saw your memories, boy. This master of yours does not treat you well. Why not just let me get rid of him? I'd be doing you a favour." The memories Meng Mo had looked at were mostly of those of the interactions between the original Shen Qingqiu and Lo Binghe. Those memories were indeed the greatest in number, but... Lo Binghe shook his head. "Shishun isn't like you say, senior. In addition, no matter what, Shishun is my honoured master. He can treat me however he likes, but as his disciple, I cannot disrespect him." Meng Mo humphed. How backward! The human realm's righteous path is full of this type of hypocritical morality. So what if he's honoured or not, your master or whatever? If someone mistreats or harms me, they should be killed. He knew your cultivation was not sufficient to face Skyhammer, yet he still sent you out for that match. Were his intentions not clear? "At that time, even I didn't believe I could win," said Lo Binghe. "But Shishun believed in me. Not only did he give me an opportunity, but he even encouraged me during the match, and in the end I truly did win." The next sentence he said silently and owned himself. "For my sake, Shishun blocked 2 attacks meant for me. His goodwill is genuine." Meng Mo had only randomly skimmed some memory fragments. He didn't understand Shen Qingqiu's behaviour, nor did he want to try unravelling the issue, though he was quite pleased with Lo Binghe's attitude. "You, boy, are a person who always values loyalty and bonds." "Not even 1,000th of how Shishun does towards me," said Lo Binghe. If Meng Mo had a mouth, its corner would have been twitching. He opted to change the topic. After murmuring for a moment, he said, "This elder senses that within your body something is being suppressed. Even though I cannot tell exactly what it is, it must be something surpassing remarkable. What sort of thing is it that even you can't tell?" Meng Mo chuckled. "My race produces master cultivators in droves. It is not impossible that a demon more illustrious than this elder sealed something within your body." In any case, Meng Mo surely wasn't so eager to throw away this several hundred-year-old reputation that he'd waste time tricking an impoverished teenager who had nothing. Nevertheless, Lo Binghe stared in disbelief. "Does Senior mean that the thing in my body is related to demons?" "What, are you displeased?" Meng Mo asked sneeringly, eager to sever any connections with the demon race. Lo Binghe's state of shock didn't last for too long. His thoughts whirled rapidly before he declared, "The demon realm does many evils of all kinds and has injured my master multiple times. Naturally, I cannot associate with them." Momo became depressed. Can you go 3 sentences without mentioning that master of yours, boy? Let this elder guess. The next thing you want to say is, "May I ask the senior if there is a method to remove this something from my body?" Luo Binghe smiled wryly. Even if I ask, would the senior tell me?" Momo laughed boisterously. "It's not that I don't want to tell you, but it is truly beyond me. I can't even see it clearly. How can I tell you how to remove it? If not for the fact that I couldn't make sense of you, boy, I would have already killed you both. Why else would I care to drag this out for so long? You think I've that much time on my hands?" Luo Binghe didn't speak. He was thinking, you don't even have a body anymore. You were just a shade being a parasite in others' dream realms. If Momo didn't have time, who did? Momo, unaware that Luo Binghe was internally ridiculing him, continued, "Removing it would be impossible for me, but suppressing it is not out of the question." "Senior is willing to tell me how?" Luo Binghe asked tentatively. "Not only can this elder teach you how to suppress it, he can teach you much more," said Momo leniently. This implication was extremely blatant, and Luo Binghe understood. His heart sank. "You want me to cultivate the demonic path?" As his tone turned cold, Momo's temper flared. "What's wrong with cultivating the demonic path? If you cultivate the demonic path, that thing in your body will bring great benefits to your cultivation. You could leap 1,000 kilometers in a day. You could stand above the thousands. These are not empty words. With time, your power could overturn and sweep away the entirety of 3 realms, and the heavens and earth within, and it would all be simple." At the last part, Luo Binghe's heart jolted. 1,000 kilometers in a day, stand above the thousands. The entirety of the 3 realms swept away before him. That was to say, he'd become strong, the strongest. He quickly rejected this thought. Shen Qingchua hated the way of demons more than anything. If he couldn't resist this Mengwo's temptation to become a demonic cultivator, how could he face his master? Whether Shen Qingchua would be thunderously angry or drown in depression, either way Luo Binghe definitely didn't want to find out. No, so he resolutely refused. Mengwo sneered. "If you refuse to learn from me, you won't be able to suppress the demonic energy in your body. It's hidden deeply now, and you're fine with it because it can't be seen, but this elder senses that the seal in your body is weakening. One day in the future, when that power breaks through, how will that good Shifu of yours treat you? He who abhors evil and makes eliminating demons and upholding justice his mission." Even as Mengwo articulated Luo Binghe's greatest worry, Luo Binghe clenched his teeth. "This junior is but an ordinary cultivator, for whom achieving even foundation establishment is of perils and hardships. Why do you insist I cultivate the demonic path?" This question was way too high level. Other than the author, who could explain why all the great geniuses and masters were always crying and pleading for the protagonist to be their apprentice/disciple/son-in-law? No, in fact, even most authors probably didn't know the answer to this eternal riddle. "You should appreciate others' kindnesses, boy. This elder can see that you're extraordinary. Would you rather all my knowledge vanish like smoke along with my physical body? How many people would beg for it to no avail?" Luo Binghe showed no feeling on his face. At his refusal to reply, Mengwo felt a rush of ominous premonition. Sure enough, the next time Luo Binghe opened his mouth, he did so with a pure and harmless smile. "Surely Senior isn't so eager to teach me because he's unwilling to let his knowledge vanish without a successor, right?" he asked, slow and composed. Mengwo cried himself, "Not good. If one lives by feeding off others' dream realms, and often changes hosts, one's spirit will weaken and suffer damage during the transfer," said Luo Binghe. But if one were to live long-term within a set host body, one could instead persevere and nurture the spirit to stabilize it. He paused. "Senior Mengwo, could it be that you're already approaching your limit, and that's why you have to pick me to be the host you'll raise?" Having been seen through, Mengwo neither denied nor became angry. Instead, he grandly admitted, "That's right. Who'd have thought, boy, that you were actually so well learned and knowledgeable that you'd even know something like that?" Luo Binghe's expression was unperturbed. Unable to intuit what this boy was thinking, Mengwo continued, "However, don't assume that this elder absolutely must have you as a host. Wonderfully gifted demons number in the millions. Any one of them would beg you on their knees for this special honour. You're the one who should carefully consider whether you can afford to miss this opportunity." In truth, over these long years, Mengwo's spirit had steadily degenerated. He had originally resided within a demonic device and happily lived there. With 180 years of meditation, he would have been brimming with energy again. But it just so happened that Xua Ling, unaware of this, had at the end of a series of absolute coincidence used the device as a weapon and loaded it on Luo Binghe. Consequently, Mengwo had not the strength to search for another host. But on the road to his doom, he'd unexpectedly discovered that, buried within the body and consciousness of the boy he newly resided in, lay concealed a faintly discernible yet incredible power. He'd been ecstatic. How could he have let this go? He'd already decided that, no matter how adamantly Lo Bing-ho refused, he'd wheedle and pester, make threats and promises. Even if it meant exhausting every single method he had, he would persuade the boy to learn his demonic techniques in order to make Lo Bing-ho's body and consciousness an even more suitable residence for him. This elder will give you time, so think through it carefully, said Meng-mo. Otherwise, I'll trap your and your master's consciousnesses within the dream realm forever. This elder is capable of that much. Lo Bing-ho's head snapped up. For an instant, as cold light flashed in the youth's eyes, Meng-mo froze, intimidated. Ooh. Art. A tiny little angry Lo Bing-ho. So cute. Right now, you are discussing terms with me, and you are free to say anything. Lo Bing-ho's gentle and humble demeanour from moments before was entirely gone, his voice bitterly cold. But if you harm Shishun, any agreement is void. Meng-mo was frozen for a long time before he finally returned to himself, stunned that he'd actually been terrorised by the presence of an ordinary, insignificant cultivator of the human realm. He had intimidated souls throughout the three realms for hundreds of years. Even in the miserable battle where his corporeal body had been destroyed, he had not lost to anyone in terms of presence. How could he have known that, in future generations, this present would be called the protagonist's exclusive, or a badassery? The cave exploded with sudden bellowing laughter. Boy, you really have quite the temper. As that ancient voice said those words, Lo Bing-ho felt his limbs become heavy, the scene around him spinning before he was plunged into darkness. In a flash, and with a start, Lo Bing-ho woke inside the woodshed, his back utterly drenched in sweat. At the same time, Shen Jingqiu also sprang up in bed, like a corpse coming alive after death. Head dizzy and vision spinning, he gasped for breath for a while, and only then did he finally relax. Horrible, 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 horrible enough to die. How come? How come when in the original work Meng-mo dragged Ning Ying to dream within a dream, her dream was a comforting childhood memory, wherein her parents let her pick flowers and ride horses? How come in his term, he had first been surrounded by fist-sized man-eating wasps, then been dashing madly through the narrow passages of a tomb or closely pursued by a giant ball of fire? Oh my god, I'm sad that part wasn't done in the donghua. The most terrifying thing was that, in the final part of the dream within a dream, Meng-mo had woven in Shen Qingqiu's greatest fear. Within a damp, dark dungeon, he had been suspended in mid-air by a ring around his waist, unable to feel his limbs. When he opened his mouth, no sound came out, and he could only helplessly hiss. His entire body burned with pain. Only after an unknown length of time had passed did the sound of a stone door opening drift it from outside the dungeon. Footsteps, neither fast nor slow, steadily approached. Then the shadow of a person was cast onto the floor before him. On an ink-black hem, exquisite motifs were embroidered on silver thread. From that person emanated an ice-cold pressure, more stifling than the dungeon's airless darkness. Shen Qingqiu couldn't clearly see that person's face, but he knew very well who they were. Meng-mo truly deserved to be a legend among demons. That dream realm had been far, far too realistic. Even now, the damp odour of decay seemed to linger in Shen Qingqiu's nose, nauseating him. Shen Qingqiu managed to keep sitting for a while. Then he rolled off the bed and began to retch. Ding dong. Now... Ding dong. Now of all fucking times a system notification sprang up. Congratulations on completing the scenario. Meng-mo's barrier. The system awards you plus 500 satisfaction points. Please continue to work hard. Shen Qingqiu made a stop gesture and still had enough in him to try settling debts. Let's have a proper discussion, he said. When you threatened to deduct satisfaction points, it wasn't 500, right? Why not set it at 500 for both? Are the large punishments and small rewards really fair? And I went through the extra scenario of the dream within a dream, so why haven't you ordered any extra B points to me? System? Don't play dead. Let's sign a new contract. At this moment, someone slammed open the bamboo house's front door and rushed inside like a gust of wind. Shushan! Shen Qingqiu knew who it was just from the sound. He miserably rolled his eyes. He really didn't want to see that face right now. Lo Bing-ho had already thrown himself to Shen Qingqiu's side, overflowing with anxiety. Shushan, how are you? Do you feel the least bit unwell? Truthfully, not too terrible. If you could stay a bit further away, I'd feel even better. Shen Qingqiu averted his face, and with unyielding strength and poise, stood by himself. Everything is well with this master. Lo Bing-ho had wanted to help him up, yet his hand had been reflexively shoved away. He couldn't help but freeze. Shen Qingqiu didn't notice these small shifts in Lo Bing-ho's emotions. He tightened his clothes, verifying to himself that even though he wore only an inner robe, his image remained spotless. Did that Meng-mo trouble you further afterward? Trouble my ass. Mengmo would have been falling over himself to lick Luo Binghe's boots. Shen Qingqiu was asking despite knowing. Luo Binghe hesitated a bit before he replied. That demon elder's spiritual strength seems to have been lacking. This disciple was expelled from the dream realm after a short while. Shizhuan, did you encounter anything inside the dream within a dream? Even if I did encounter something, could this master not handle it? Shen Qingqiu boasted shamelessly. Of course he couldn't handle it. Even now the shadow of being a human stick remained. With Luo Binghe so close to him, his entire body was tingling, and he couldn't help averting his gaze to suppress his fear. Unsure of the reason for this, Luo Binghe only saw that Shen Qingqiu's expression was odd, his gaze no longer calmly looking straight at him like he usually did these days. It made his heart both fretful and anxious. Luckily, Shen Qingqiu adjusted his attitude with superlative quickness, remembering that he was a teacher and what he should do at this time. In the next instant, he reached out and took Luo Binghe's wrist. Being attacked by a demon is no joke, he said firmly. This master would examine you for a moment. We cannot be negligent. Yes, Luo Binghe said obediently, his wrist firmly held. His heart had just known a moment of ease, but now it was once more suspended. On the off chance Shen Qingqiu uncovered Mengmo and exposed the peculiarity within his body afterward. But though Shen Qingqiu diligently examined Luo Binghe for a time, he didn't detect anything off. Of course he didn't. Mengmo had several hundred years worth of skill and experience, and his celebrated reputation wasn't exaggerated in the slightest. However, Shen Qingqiu still had to go through the motions. His examination fruitless, he nevertheless repeatedly urged Luo Binghe to visit Changcao Peak and Qiongding Peak the next day to let other people examine him, and, finally, to absolutely say something if an issue arose. Yet Luo Binghe had no intention of leaving. With the appearance of someone full of worries, he started and stopped speaking several times before asking, Shizhuan, demons, are they all wicked beyond redemption? Must every last one of them be exterminated? Shen Qingqiu didn't reply to this question right away. He stood in place, indeed finding it difficult to answer. Seeing Luo Binghe petrified, forcibly keeping calm while also somewhat anticipating his teacher's answer, Shen Qingqiu spoke slowly. Humans can be good or bad, so naturally demons too can be good or evil. We often see demons victimizing people, but that doesn't mean there aren't cases where humans harm innocent demons. Don't put too much weight on race. This was the first time Luo Binghe had heard a teacher express this kind of opinion. He listened in a daze, heart thumping wildly. Shizhuan means even if someone is closely connected to demons, that doesn't mean that the heavens find them intolerable. Is that right? How can you claim they're intolerable to the heavens in the first place? Shen Qingqiu countered. If they're intolerable, why would the heavens let them exist? Who has the authority to say whether they ought to be tolerated or not? During this chain of questions, Luo Binghe's eyes gradually lit up. There was within him a faint sense of burning passion. Luo Binghe, you may choose to ignore the words this master tells you from here on out, Shen Qingqiu said at last, but you must always remember what I've told you here today. In this world, there is nothing intolerable to the heavens. This is true for all races, as it's true for all humans. At this time, though Luo Binghe's heart leaned towards the righteous path, he wasn't a pedant. In any case, since whatever was within him couldn't be removed, why not put it to good use? He absolutely had to become stronger, so strong that he would never be powerless, strong enough that he could protect Shizhuan from any hand that dared to reach for him. Seeing Luo Binghe's eyes so dazzlingly bright, Shen Qingqiu couldn't imagine what he was thinking, but his own thoughts were a jumbled mess. His advice this time wasn't coming purely from a place of having developed an addiction to being the sage guiding the protagonist's life journey. The idea of the heaven's magnanimity was a universal concept, older than time itself, and it had been recycled like a reheated old rice for decades by the historical, wuxia, and xianxia genres without the slightest hint of progress. But in this world of ocean-deep hatred between humans and demons, who were unable to coexist and who had engaged in countless great wars in the past up to the present, the concept was extremely unconventional. Anyone who espoused it risked unilateral condemnation. As someone of mixed lineage, it had been extremely difficult for the original Luo Binghe to avoid being impacted by human hatred of demons and vice versa. Since the greater half of his life had been harsh and full of misfortunes, he had even begun to despair and think that perhaps the world and heavens both found his existence intolerable, that he should never have been born. Shen Qingqiu hoped that, from this point forth, these words could plant a seed within Luo Binghe's heart and broaden his perspective, that in the future, when facing the truth of this heritage, he could remain optimistic and not take the attacks on his lineages to heart. Perhaps then his behaviour won't turn so extreme, and he wouldn't become bent on taking revenge on the world. Perhaps, even if someday in the future Luo Binghe had to face a Shen Qingqiu who would throw him down into the endless abyss, he would be able to understand that this betrayal wasn't his fault. If that was possible, then even if the scenario arrived and the system forced Shen Qingqiu to say lines like, humans and demons cannot coexist, their hatred is ocean deep and cannot be overcome, you fucker, hurry up and die, thereby slapping him so hard that he'd been sent himself flying, well, that would be that. Now that the atmosphere had grown heavy, Shen Qingqiu felt he'd gone overboard with his cool act. With his terror of embarrassment about to erupt, he coughed once. That said, demons are naturally gifted with spiritual strength, far more so than humans, he said. If their strength could be used for good and was dedicated to the righteous path, to the common people, then how could that not be a good thing? Demons had exceptional talent for cultivation and absolutely crushed the human realm in that arena. As the races were different, so too were their energy systems. Humans relied on spiritual chi, where demons relied on demonic chi, though Shen Qingqiu reckoned that the two were basically the same, with only the colour and names being distinct. Maybe the demon realm had good feng shui or something, but the vast majority of demons were born fully charged with demonic chi. At age 3, they could rip apart a human with their bare hands, and at age 8, they could split mountains and crack stone. Ahem, this is a bit of an exaggeration. However, the truth was that many humans had only mediocre aptitude. Even after cultivating for several decades, they could often only achieve the skill level of a small demon infant. Even more humans were like dried-up ponds, their spiritual strength practically a perfect egg, i.e. 0. These humans were often said to be lacking spiritual roots, or absent the lot from immortality. It couldn't get worse than that. If it weren't for the humans' comparative love of propagating, and for demons being generally sparse in number, the human realm would have long ago been colonised by demons. Honestly, they were just coasting on the fact that demon family planning was so strict. After suffering the torments of this world-changing journey, Shen Qingqiu hadn't slept the entire night. 2 bags had already appeared under his eyes. He waved his hand. It's very late. There's nothing else than go and rest. Luo Binghe obediently asked to be excused, but he hadn't walked far when he heard Shen Qingqiu call from behind. Come back. Luo Binghe immediately turned back. Does Shizhuan have any other instructions? The dorms are that way, said Shen Qingqiu. Why are you walking the other direction? The disciples' dormitories and the woodshed were both the left turn out the door, yet Luo Binghe turned to the right. This disciple wants to go to the kitchen first, to prepare tomorrow's breakfast for Shizhuan, said Luo Binghe. Shen Qingqiu was in a bind. He really wanted to eat Luo Binghe's breakfast, but having a child cook for him instead of sleeping when it was already so late at night, didn't that sound like Cinderella and her stepmother? Either way, it seemed inhumane. In the end, Shen Qingqiu's conscience won over his stomach. He coughed. Nonsense. It's the middle of the night. What is there to cook? Go back and sleep. Luo Binghe knew his master was worried about him not resting enough and agreed with a smile, but he still planned to sneak off to the kitchen to work later. Shen Qingqiu asked him if he was still sleeping in the woodshed, but after mulling it over a moment, he concluded that the youth still had their dignity. Asking him outright would be embarrassing. Moreover, even if he had Luo Binghe sleep in the disciples' dorm, the other students would take Mingfan's lead and bully him, steal his blankets and hide his shoes or whatnot, the poor thing. Tomorrow, pack your things and come here, said Shen Qingqiu before Luo Binghe left. At first, Luo Binghe didn't understand what he meant. Shizhuan? There's a side room in the bamboo house. Starting tomorrow, you can move in there. If Luo Binghe had lived a little closer, then in the future it would be easier to have him make breakfast and clean up around the house. Shen Qingqiu's adaptability was, as always, as incredible as a record-breaking dick. Just a moment ago... What a phrase. Just a moment ago, he had been unable to even look Luo Binghe in the face, but now he dared to scheme how to make the great protagonist wait on him hand and foot, serve his tea, carry his water, wash his clothes, fold his blankets, etc. Being in the middle of fantasizing, he hadn't noticed his protagonist's reaction. Suddenly, Luo Binghe pounced on him like a tiger, capturing him in a tight embrace. This is so cute in the donghua. Caught off guard, Shen Qingqiu jumped in surprise, then his face reddened. For the first time in his life, someone had wrapped him in a full-bodied embrace, and it wasn't a warm and gentle jade-skinned maiden, but a youth brimming with tyrannical energy. Shizhuan! Shizhuan! Overflowing with happiness, Luo Binghe hugged him around the neck and refused to let go, crying in his ear over and over. Shen Qingqiu didn't know where to put his hands. After floundering for a bit, he placed them on Luo Binghe's head and stroked his hair. All right, you cried out to me, hugged me, and made all this racket, and you aren't even embarrassed. You're already so big. It's not like you're a 10-year-old child. How do you think this looks? Luo Binghe hadn't thought about it that deeply. When it was put that way, he grew suddenly ashamed. If he hadn't been overcome by a torrent of joy, he would never have dared to treat his normally aloof and removed Shizhuan like this. Though reluctant, he hurried to peel himself from Shen Qingqiu's body, his whole face red. Yes, the disciple has overstepped. When it came to asking for hugs, children under the age of 10 were moe, but 15-year-old Luo Binghe was still moe. With a fresh and tender face like this handsome little sprout's, anything you did would be moe. Luo Binghe floundered for a while, at first a little flustered, but then he noticed that Shen Qingqiu's complexion didn't look particularly good. Even though Shen Qingqiu had the immortal body of a cultivator, he was haunted by old injuries and a lingering poison. Then, because of Luo Binghe, he had been dragged into Meng Mo's dream realm. He hadn't rested properly and was at his limit, so of course he looked a bit haggard. Luo Binghe didn't dare interfere with Shen Qingqiu's rest any longer and grudgingly said his goodbyes. Nevertheless, he didn't return to the woodshed, though this time he made sure to take a detour before going to the kitchen. He promised himself that for the next long while he would carefully watch over his master's diet and recuperation. As soon as Luo Binghe stepped from the room, a system notification arrived. Protagonist satisfaction points, plus 50. Shen Qingqiu was mystified. Why add another 50? System lag? Or had the system discovered its conscience and concluded it had given him too little before? Whatever, he was exhausted, so what if points were added? To the point, there was no way his admittedly great self had earned that 50 with a single hug. I like the fact that his mind, he is smart, but he's just like, waving it off like that can't be why. The next day, Shen Qingqiu hadn't slept as long as he wanted before the fragrant scent of fish and rice wafted into his room and tempted him awake. Outside of the bamboo house, Luo Binghe had spent long hours preparing a meal with utmost care. The scent drew in a great number of Qingjing Peak disciples who were used to eating bland food. They held off to the side, snooping. Enraged, Mingfan and the others chewed their sleeve hems while watching the scene unfold, especially when Shen Qingqiu sat at the table and affectionately sang praises to Luo Binghe for his efforts and handiwork. As the two blissfully smiled at each other, their audience's grief and resentment reached its peak. Utterly shameless, to use his licentious schemes and unorthodox methods to curry Suzhen's favour. That evening, when Luo Binghe moved his things into the side room of Shen Qingqiu's house, every last one of the Qingjing Peak disciples who had bullied Luo Binghe were wiped out. It was as if they had been struck by lightning from a clear sky, leaving their corpses scattered across the field. Though the words were, moved his things, in truth it was only Luo Binghe moving himself. From the beginning, he'd never really had anything in the woodshed. His pillow? He'd rested his head upon a bundle of straw he found there. Blanket? His outer robes had covered him. And, of course, Shen Qingqiu had prepared the real deal for him already. Shen Qingqiu had always thought that Luo Binghe's life was unbearably miserable, just a textbook case of child abuse. Zhangjiang mountain sect was one of the major sects in the cultivation world. How could people's hearts have grown so dark in such a place? How could their resources be so lacking? That night, Luo Binghe lay on a normal bed for the first time in his life. Before, he had laid in a wooden basin floating down an icy river, then on the damp, cold ground, then in between noisy streets, then even in mountain caves while roughing it out in the world. It had become normal. Conversely, now that he was sleeping on a soft and tidy bamboo bed, his entire body felt light, floaty, like none of this was real. It was especially unreal when he thought of Shen Qingqiu sleeping in the main room, just a wall away. That night, perhaps Luo Binghe had had too much on his mind. Meng Mo didn't appear in his dream realm. So Luo Binghe remained composed and waited. Sure enough, a few days later, Meng Mo appeared again. This time, Meng Mo didn't set up some mysterious barrier, having not intended to hide in the first place. Instead, he appeared directly in Luo Binghe's dream, though he did so in the form of a cloud of black mist. This cloud of black mist expanded and contracted before Luo Binghe's eyes, endlessly transforming, and the aged voice echoed from within it. "So what have you decided in these 3 days, boy? Does Senior Meng Mo not know my decision?" Luo Binghe replied. Meng Mo chuckled. "You have chosen a path you definitely won't regret. Remember this day, boy. Today is the beginning of your meteoric rise." "What youth didn't dream of meteoric success." Meng Mo's words rang with grand heroic spirit, but Luo Binghe was unmoved. He only cupped his fists and bowed. "This junior has one more request." "What is it? Out with it. Hurry up and finish so you can finally become my apprentice," Meng Mo urged him on, not realizing he was being far too optimistic. "That is precisely what this junior wanted to speak about," said Luo Binghe. "My master treats me with utmost kindness. I really can't apprentice under anyone else without his permission." Fine. Meng Mo interrupted before he could finish, at the end of his patience. "This elder won't demand the titles of master and apprentice. Is that enough?" Had any extraordinary master ever come away with a worse deal? He was falling over himself to teach someone his pupil's techniques, yet he wouldn't even get to hear his student call him Shifu. How was his plight any different from that of an absolutely devoted yet bitterly suffering concubine who couldn't gain official status? Luo Binghe smiled. Then many thanks to Senior. He wasn't remotely willing to call anyone other than Shen Qingqiu Shizhen. As he eyed Lobing-her, Mengmo was sure that if he still had a physical body, his nose would have gone crooked with rage. This Lobing-her was all cute and obedient in front of his master, just like a little white lotus. So then why was he so hard to deal with for other people? Two completely different faces. He was practically a different person. This elder was going to die of rage. And that is the end of chapter 3. So, more great scenes. And it's funny because there are hints of the fact that Senjin might have is not completely oblivious to the idea that, it could be possible that a hug could increase satisfaction points and things like that, but he dismisses it. Doesn't think, why would a hug give me 50 points, so that's quite funny, and he's so sweet, like the way he actually sees Lobing-her at the moment, like he just wants to pat his head, like I love that he describes that as his own selfishness, that he wants to pat his head and lets himself do so, and the fact that he's like quite earnestly saying he'll protect him, like he doesn't have to grow strong, I'll protect you kind of thing, like even though knowing it's not going to happen anyway, like he will grow ridiculously strong, etc. But like the idea that he liked the thought of just being able to protect this little Lobing-her for the rest of his life, that's just really sweet. Meanwhile, Lobing-her is just like, with all the things that Shen Qingque was saying in this chapter, just like on cloud 9, like things like when he overheard Ming Fan's like mutterings under his breath about saying how behind his back Shen Qingque had been praising him to the other sect leaders, or the other peak leaders, and just the fact that he helped him out so much, and despite the fact that he'd been hurt because of him and then by him, he's still acting nice towards him and, offering to protect him and offering him advice. It's absolutely, it's great. I also love, like, obviously part of it is out of like a desire for self-preservation, but the fact that Shen Qingque does give him that speech about demons aren't, like, you can't, just because someone's a demon doesn't mean they're necessarily evil. You can't just judge someone by their race. There are other factors to consider. So not every demon's going to be evil and not every human's going to be good. I love that speech. And when, like, Lobing, how it's like revolutionary to Lobing-her. Like, he'd been convinced that having some demon in him would just make him just like abhorrent in his Shushan's eyes, like that he wouldn't be able to stand his presence or like his existence or something. And yet Shen Qingque is saying, like, no, like if like a demon were to put their powers to a good use, then how could that be bad? So yeah, love that. The hug is adorable. I love that. The fact it's like a full-bodied proper hug, and then like Shen Qingque being so flustered where to put his hands, and just like in the end just starts like petting him, just like it's okay, what are you doing? It's so many good interactions. I love it. I still really love like Liu Chunger's skepticism about the new Shen Qingque's attitude. The fact he's saying, if it wasn't for the fact that I can't detect anything wrong with your spirit, etc., I'd have thought you're possessed. And like Shen Yuan thinking in his head, right, you're not far off. That's great. I love the fact that he just doesn't buy into it. Like all the other ones are like slightly surprised. Like Mu Jingfang, like he was like startled for a moment by like his polite attitude, etc., and like probably the fact that he's not acting out and like throwing a fit about the fact that he's like now been poisoned and like at least partly spiritually crippled, etc. Like he's now got an injury that's like, at least in their eyes, permanent. Oh my god, I forgot about the they were talking about the cure for the poison is essentially sleeping with Lobing-her, and it's just like, well, I can't do that now, so but he's still optimistic about the cure, because he was saying, oh, I know there is a cure, but what he knows is that. So what was his plan? Like, is it to hug him enough later on that it'll be absorbed by him? Like, I don't know what his plan is there when he knows the method of being cured, but also said, how could he sleep with him? So that's quite fun. But now Lobunka is now living in his house. So and he's super excited about it. He's just next door to his Shishun. So like he said, what an upgrade for his experiences in his life of what where he's previously slept. He now gets to sleep on a proper bed in a lovely house in the same vicinity as his Shishun. What an upgrade. I really enjoyed that chapter and I hope you did too. And I hope to see you all in the next one. Bye bye.